talked about it with the board. We, and of course, internally, we wanted to try to give more opportunity for us to hear some voices on this proposed policy. We're here tonight to listen, and so we'll share a little bit of information up front, but we want to clear the space to hear from you all. For those who have a very strong stance regarding devices, electronic devices, for those who are still processing and you want to process out loud with us, wherever you sit, we want to hear from you. So I want to manage expectations tonight. Our goal is not to have you ask a question and then us answer, and you ask a question and us answer. We're going to tell you where we are up front and share the highlights of the of the policy, the policy. I transported myself to another place. And just so you know where we are, we've shared it initially, the policy initially with several representative groups, with some administrators, with some teachers, with some parents, scholars, of course, in a few different settings with scholars. We wanted a more public kind of conversation around it before we bring it back to the board to have them consider and further discuss this potential with them. Hopefully it's not news to you that school districts, states, schools, individual schools have been grappling with the best use or the best way to manage or to work around technology. Many of us, especially following the pandemic, many school districts or schools, individual schools, went one-to-one, which means we've identified and procured a device for each scholar. Now, of course, over time, scholars break them or lose them, or things happen and you have to keep refreshing the technology, but we are a one-to-one district. And so as we come to you tonight with this conversation around scholars' their own devices, we come to you with that as part of our reality, that we have devices that we provide to scholars in school, even if they happen to lose or break theirs. We have enough devices in school. It's not likely that any one school will have every scholar using a device at the very same time. So we have enough devices for our scholars to use them to do the things that they need to do. And that's true even on testing days. Now, there could be challenges if someone's device is broken or lost or what have you, but it is very rare that we will have everyone using a device at the very same time. And so given that, even when we have some challenges device to device, we have enough to run our programs and for scholars to do their classwork and other things. All right, so that being said, going back to the one-to-one. We are a one-to-one district, and each year and throughout the year, we're continuing to refresh the Chromebooks and iPads and other devices that we use for instructional purposes. And as much as we want to and work to infuse technology into the lesson, we are still teaching on dry erase boards. Scholars are still using paper and other tools and manipulatives at their desks. So not all learning throughout the day happens on a device. All right, again, all of that is kind of laying the ground. So that being said, we find ourselves at this, what we think is a crucial point in our work. We are working to continually increase safety in our schools and to continually create the space for scholars to focus and do their very, very best. We know, because probably everybody, I don't know if there's anybody in here, and you don't have to tell me, who does not have a device, and that you individually as a grown-up don't periodically look at your device or check something or text someone or whatever you might be doing. We live with our devices. We bank, some of us pull up our Bibles at church, we communicate, we do all sorts of things on our devices. So even with that as a part of our reality in 2025, we find ourselves in a situation where we are, personal devices are more of a nuisance and a distraction to the learning space than they are a help. And so that is why we're coming to our community and coming to the board with this proposal that we prohibit devices during the school day. And we'll talk about the specifics in a moment, but this is not you cannot bring a device into the building. The rule, and really it's further clarifying what had already been, by the way, further clarifying what had already been the expectation. Devices are not to be out of your bag, right? And again, it's in order to ensure and increase safety in our schools and to ensure that we have far fewer distractions so that our scholars can be the most successful that they can be. So, Attorney Harris is going to come and talk a little more about the specifics of the policy. You've got a document there in front of you giving you some information. We'll talk for just a few minutes because we want to lay some groundwork, but then we want to open it up and really encourage you, again, whether you're solidly on one side or another of the issue or you're still processing, we really desperately want to hear from you. And we're going to listen and take notes and continue the conversation, likely in a frequently asked questions document and, of course, with the board, our school board, as we go forward in talking with them about this. So now I'll bring up our Attorney Harris to talk us through the policy.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Good evening, everyone. As he stated, this is not a new policy, right? We're proposing to make amendments to our current policy. So if you have not done so already, I encourage everyone to go to our website and look at our proposed changes to our policy. It's been up for a month today. So if you go to our webpage, go under the school boards tab, look under board policies under review, and that's where you can review our proposed amendments to this policy before they go to the board for a vote, all right? So first, why update this electronic devices? It says cell phone policy up there because I know that's people's major concerns, but this policy has and still does encompass all electronic devices. So smart watches, AirPods, headphones, earbuds, smart glasses, all of the things that can transmit data, those are proposed to be prohibited under this policy, okay? But we want to amend this policy for a few reasons. First of all, we've experienced increased classroom disruptions, okay? Increased disciplinary issues related to cell phones, whether it's recording incidents that shouldn't be recorded, texting each other and instigating events during the school day while we should be focused on learning, right? All of those are issues, and then off-task behavior. It's one of the primary reasons why we are seeking to make amendments to our policy. There's a growing misuse of devices for cheating, right? For harassment, like I said, recording without consent. There's a decline. If we're stuck to our cell phones, we're not engaging with each other, student to student or student to teacher. And so we want to increase engagement throughout the school day. There are also safety and privacy concerns surrounding social media, again, the use of our devices in unsanctioned ways. And then we want to align our policy enforcement with our instructional priorities and responsibilities. The school day is meant for teaching and learning, and we want to really promote that and increase teaching and learning in our buildings. As a result of the use of electronic devices throughout the day, we've seen a decline in individual student performance due to lack of focus and engagement during teaching and learning. You can go ahead. So I want to talk about the highlights, the proposed changes. You have them in front of you to take with you, but again, this policy is existing. The policy has always been for devices to remain out of sight and to not be used. Our proposed amendment is for that device to remain in the scholar's backpack, from bell to bell. Not out on the bus, not let me check my phone real quick and see what's going on. It cannot be in their pockets, in their socks, in their purse, on their person. It should be stored in the backpack throughout the school day. Devices should not be used in hallways or restrooms or the gymnasium or during lunch. Again, no pulling devices out of the backpacks during the school day. Now, one portion of our policy that we had previously, there was an option. Instead of getting my phone taken, or if I get my phone taken, instead of it being kept for X number of days, my mama could come and pay a fine, right, to get my phone out. We've discovered that's not equitable. Everybody does not have the resources to pay a fine to get their phones out. So for equitable appliance of this policy to everyone, as a deterrent to repeated violations of this policy, we've eliminated the option to pay a fine. It's straight confiscation. So for the first offense, under the amended policy, under the proposed changes, the first offense will result in a 5-day confiscation of the device. Okay? 5 school days. Not calendar days, 5 school days, okay? For a second offense of this policy, the proposal is to confiscate that device for 10 school days. And for third or additional beyond third, 3 and up offenses of this policy, the device is proposed to be confiscated for 45 school days. In addition, the refusal to surrender a device will result in separate disciplinary action under the Scholar Code of Conduct. So for example, I have my phone out. Dr. Green says, Larissa, give me that phone. You know you're not supposed to have that phone out. Dr. Green, I'm not giving you my phone. Larissa, give me that phone. My refusal to give up my device not only will result in my device being confiscated for 5 days if this is my first offense, it will result in additional action under the student code of conduct, under the student handbook, which will more likely be a 3-day suspension. It's called disrespect of others. Insubordination, disrespect of others, that falls under the category under the Scholar Handbook, and that will result in that whatever suspension is, so let's say 3-day suspension, and my device will get taken for that certain number of days, okay? And so we want to support the community through this change. Again, as Dr. Green stated, we've been speaking to our community. We've spoken to parents and scholars and administrators and teachers, and now we want to speak to the broader community. We want to get your thoughts on our policy. But what we're doing, we're delivering clear expectations. We want this policy enforced consistently through each one of our schools. Now I'm doing a different thing at this school and I'm doing something else over here. Consistent implementation throughout the district. We will have reminders that it's a device-free zone reinforced throughout our school buildings. I know a concern is, what if I need to get in contact with my child? We have phones available in the offices. If there's an emergency at a school, we have contacts. Schools have phones. Schools have working phones. And a parent can contact the school if there's an emergency and they need to speak with their child, okay? There are exceptions for documented medical needs. We know that some medical devices are tracked via electronic devices, whether it's a watch or a phone. There are exceptions for documented medical needs. It means you have something from a licensed medical doctor that's on file with the administration, on file with our school prior to, okay? And then we're gonna have staff training on consistent and fair enforcement. And so now we would like to open up for community. Thank you. We want to open the floor for public comment. So what you'll do, if you want to speak? Yes, sir.
Go ahead. I'll just speak before folks stop.
Okay. So I'm going to set the ground rules. Y'all come up here if you want to speak. One person will come up at a time. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. I'll keep the time. And as a reminder, this is a listening session. So while we will be listening and recording your feedback, we will not respond, okay? We won't respond tonight, but we will take your feedback into consideration, discuss it with the board. We do have a couple of board members here who are listening to you all as well, okay? And so I will let Dr. Green speak, and then we'll get into public comment.
Yeah. Very quickly, and you touched on this at the end. We do have 2 of our board members, Mitch McGuffey, Dr. Jean Hairston, who are here. They're very, very much so interested in hearing from you, so encourage you to say all that you need to say wherever you are with this issue. I also wanted to just underscore one of the things that we have found is, because we've heard, and I know some of my peers in other districts have heard, this need or desire for families to have their scholars to text them if there is an incident in the building. And I wanted to speak to that specifically. over and over, what we experience is that young people, and sometimes older people, texting information outside of the building to others that is inaccurate. And I don't want to assume any intention, ill intention around that, but at the end of the day, whether you meant to harm or create more chaos or not, that's exactly what happens when people start to text family members or others outside of the school, and they're not the authority on what's actually happening. And that happens regularly, where something, and the police department is showing up, and we've got all kinds of people reacting to inaccurate information that has been texted out. So as we've experienced it, and as we've found here, having phones at those times actually create far more chaos than they help anyone. So I just wanted to name that. People will, again, have whatever feelings and opinions they have about that, but that has been our consistent experience, especially in those times.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Sergeant Jackson from Murray High School, JRTC. And I hope this proposal become permanent, because as I read over it, I was wondering, where has this stuff been? But we always had it, it's just that we didn't implement it. Everyone didn't sing the same song, because in JRTC, we can enforce it, but if other teachers don't, we're still beating our head against the wall. And also, I've already figured out a way how I'm going to send this out to my parents, and I'm going to flood them with information, because kids can go back and tell their parent what they want to tell them, and then that's incorrect information. And then the parents want to come up and raise all kind of cane at the school. So, but I think this is an awesome policy, and just hope that it can be implemented as soon as possible.
Good evening, everyone. I am a JPS employee, but I'm also a JPS scholar, parent. So after having a dialogue and a conversation with my daughter, there's just a couple of questions that we just want to put on the record in order to see what information can be provided for clarification for maybe some of our scholars who still have some questions. For example, knowing that wired headphones is one of the requirements that's being asked in order for them to use to plug into their devices. The wondering may be why, because they have to, at this point they use their wireless headsets, and they just probably want to know the rationale for why not wireless as opposed to wired. The other one, for students who may be at campuses where internet access was a challenge, they utilize their hotspots in order to provide internet to access online content. What infrastructure has been put in place or will be put in place in order to mitigate that solution? For example, my child will be attending APAC Bailey, and they've already sent out email communications indicating that the data and the technology concerns and challenges that they're putting forth will continue into the fall. So I guess the wondering is, what sort of plan do we already have in place in order to mitigate those circumstances? And I think that is all that she and I were able in order to come up with, that we were just looking for some more clarification around. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I am a parent of a high schooler and 2 middle schoolers now. So I have more so like a question. We had problems with the phones through the school system last year. Would that be an improvement, meaning that if something happened, will we get an automatic system or alert to notify us what's going on in the school system? Because a lot of times we see things on social media first, and then we go off top like, what's going on? But like you said, I'm 50-50 with the policy, but I just want to know, would there be better communication inside the school system so that our kids could reach out to us?
I am a parent of a high school, my last one. All my kids went through JPS, and so cell phones have been a part of, they're just a part of your regular life. So I'm trying to see just how the older kids, because those are the kids that are the ones dropping out and like running away from, they don't care, you know, like if you don't want me to have this, I ain't got to come to school. You know, it's going to be a whole nother, I feel like it's a trickle-down effect on some of the stuff. Now, I do agree, like, if I was a teacher, yeah, you put your cell phone, maybe for the smaller kids, but for the older kids, I kind of think it's it's like she said, it's a 50-50. I'm on the fence with it, and I know policies have been put in place you know, like, but I didn't even know smartwatches was a thing, was an issue. But I can see smartwatches, I can see a lot of stuff being issued, but I'm also thinking about the stuff on the other end. I just seen a video today, was not in JPS, but it was a child being yelled at by the teacher. And had he not recorded it, his mom wouldn't have never known that this sweet lady that they go to church with is degrading her child like that. So just like in other movement, you know, when it's on camera, you can't deny it. So that's what a lot of these kids get it from. You know, it's just, I mean, it's the world we live in. Like, I mean, we can't even, some of us can't, you know, sit in a meeting. Not, look, I'm pointing at you, but in a meeting, we, like me, I check my phone. It's reality. So I'm just trying to see how, I know, like, for instance, when you know, I had said someone you was talking, like Jim Hill, and that's the school my child is at right now. They didn't have phones for almost a whole year. Like, so how can I contact my child if the bus, for one, don't pick her up? I'm here to pick her up, and I don't know who class she in. They don't know who class she in. We just standing here. So what I do, I can text her and say, who class you in? So I can go back to my life, you know, whatever I was doing prior to trying to pick you up from school. And it has helped a lot because, like I say, I'm on my last one in JPS, and I'm just, you know, just trying to get up out of here. But, you know, I don't know, like I say, the smaller kids, I think it should have been restricted, okay, to more smaller kids, not the bigger kids.
Okay, I have a high school at Merle. The question I have, because of an incident that happened last year, we're okay with the phones being up, but I need to make sure, like during lunchtime when there's no one in the classroom, the teachers lock the door, because my son and another student were told to go back to the classroom to do something for a teacher, and there were some other kids in the classroom going through every child's book bag. So luckily the kids had the cell phones on them. I can't afford to be replacing a cell phone if that happens. So I want to know what y'all put in place for the teachers to lock the classrooms when they're out.
From a teacher's perspective, let's just say if I see one of my students have their cell phones out, and I already told them about the rule, not once, twice, but 3 times, and they still do it. How can I communicate with the parents themselves? Assuming that school status is null and void, and now Squarespace is now in place, right? How can I make that happen? How can I contact those parents?
Good evening. My name is Sean Carter. I have a scholar at McWillie. I'm a late bloomer, excuse me. He's only 5.5, but the thing that we deal with, and I hear the parents about communication and the way things are happening, but on a health-wise and educational-wise, it is distracting with the child constantly on the phone. There's an eye strain, you know, for, you know, over an extended period, the eyes kind of go away probably a little bit sooner, you know. But definitely distraction. Even when I see scholars catching the bus, there's no social interaction as in, hey, how are you? Or even you don't have to speak to everybody, but their heads are bent at 45 degrees looking at the phone. And I think sometimes they lose a little bit of social skills to a certain degree, to me, by not being able to gauge, break ice, you know, those sorts of things. And maybe that's just me at the school bus. That's what I see. But I don't have an older child. But I know when I was in school, Wingfield Falcon, you know, we just engaged more. And but what definitely times have changed with communication. We have to know everything. And plus, I've also heard someone say about things happening in the school. I think we have to trust the people that are watching over our children and, you know, those sorts of things. And when I grew up, what the teacher said was pretty much gold until she got up there and had a talk face to face and figured it out. Matter of fact, I had a teacher I still remember this, 8th grade. He saw me and my mom together, ooh-wee. He told everything that I did. Everything. They had a good conversation. And even one teacher I was cutting up in class, and she called one Sunday night while I was watching Wild America. That was a bad night. But she took care of business, as in, hear the teacher, asked me what I did, and it was handled from there. But definitely phones are distracted during school, even at work, even a grown people's job, making $100,000 plus or even down is distracting with work and everything. So.
Good evening. I'm a father of a lot of scholars, but I'm a community activist, and I also work with the truancy program of Hines County Youth Court. So what I want to say on record and to our people out there is we need to rally around this, because for one thing, it's not no structure in our kids' lives or in these streets. We have to start in the school system that have our children more than the parents. They at school more than they are at home. So we need to rally behind this. The little kinks that we're going to have this first year, look over. Don't look for negativity and things that can be a positive for our youth and our community. If we really want change in our city of Jackson, all these things that's going to be implemented this year, let's rally behind it. As parents, we can get together, and y'all can holler me. My name is John Knight. Y'all can holler me, and I can talk to some people that you probably can't, and we can handle this thing in different situations. But let's just make sure that we're not looking for the negatives in this. We want our children protected. We want our children taught and educated as well, because that's why a lot of them are lost, because their lack of education that they are not getting, because they're on the phone, texting, looking at social media, being angry. So let's just love our community, love everything that's good for our city, y'all. If y'all want Jackson to move forward, we have to move forward with it and come out the old days.
So I am a proud JPS graduate, but as a JPS parent, I have a little opposition. My experience as a parent is by far totally different than it has been as a JPS graduate. My concerns wrap around trust, transparency, and communication. Trust is the information that I'm being told by administrators, by teachers, are accurate. That has not always been my experience and my latest experience with JPS. Transparency is, are we telling the truth, the facts? What did you see? I don't want to hear what nobody else told you. I don't want to hear what you cannot confirm and validate. I operate in facts. Now, other character witnesses' statements are important, and they paint a bigger picture. But what are your facts? Communication, timely. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what's happening. Like she said, when my daughter first moved into JPS, and we came from private school, so it was a transition. Well, she came from private school. I stepped her over to charter school because I thought it would be similar, and then I was going to work her into public school because I wanted her to be diverse and well-rounded. However, charter school was not the answer, and that's another but my concern is in modeling behaviors with teachers. So I can say my trust falls from teachers tell you not often what they've seen, what they feel like. They tell you what they heard, and it's inaccurate information. You're looking at a parent that my child was attacked by a teacher at JPS this year. And so if it wasn't for the student's cell phone that reflected that fight, showing her drag my daughter and physically punch her, it would have been her word against her. Now, I am an advocate for my child. I am an advocate for the students at JPS, the administration, and all and so forth. I want all of us to grow and develop together. And I want accuracy and transparency, and I want JPS to move forward because I know the potential and the capability. However, building that trust is hard when I did everything that I should have done as a parent, and I kept in communication with the administrators there. I was telling them the things that was going on. I talked to the teacher first because I go to the source. I like to work it out at that level. I go to the source. Am I over? Okay, well, so I just need to know, how would that communication? Trust, building that trust, transparency. I need to know that it's the truth and communicate it timely. So if my child does go, or say, I need to go call my mama for emergency, how can we ensure that that's gonna happen? The telephone lines is gonna be working, and I get that information in a timely manner. Because I travel for my job, so I need that on-time communication.
I have two questions. One of them, if the students are gonna have to put their phones up, are the teachers gonna put their phones up too?
Model behavior.
And my second question, or maybe not even a question, statement. The ones that refuse to give up their phones in the classroom, 'cause I didn't have that problem because I just had a Ziploc bag and I just walked by the desk until I put it in there and I kept on going. And I just turned them in at the end of the day. But the ones that refuse to give up their phones, is somebody going to be coming in for the disruption that's in the classroom? Because, you know, there are some clowns that are gonna be super clowns. So, teachers putting up their phones, and what are the consequences? Is anybody gonna come in and get them jokers out of there if they're clowning in the classroom? That's it.
I'm a proud graduate of JPS, and I have a recent graduate who just finished college, and I have two other students who are in Jackson Public Schools at two different schools. And although my children are at high-performing schools, I have concerns about this policy that does not allow them to power on their phones. I'm not advocating use of cell phones in the classroom or at school, but I do believe that my child should have the right to be able to have her phone in her purse or on her person on silent, not disrupting class or anything. And if she does violate that policy, handle it on an individual basis, not the whole group as a whole. Because within the past 2 years within JPS, I've had an issue with being able to simply call the school and get someone to answer the phone. You get sent to voicemail. Sometimes I leave a voicemail for the hell of it to see if somebody call me back. It doesn't happen. I send an email. I may or may not get a response back. The VersaTrans app for tracking the bus once it leaves the house with my school, they told me the GPS on my child's bus isn't working, so I don't know where the bus is, if it made it to the school. They say they got a double or triple load for that day. It's 5:30. I can't get the bus yard because it's going to voicemail. Can't get anybody on the phone. So are we gonna have people in open lines within the school and the building to get a person on the phone to have access to what's going on with our child and where they are, and not get voicemails and forwarded on or sent to somebody else's voicemail with no return? And that has been most recently within the past 2 years. They had an issue, I think year before last, AT&T was down. They had these temporary 769 numbers, never could get anybody. And then this past year, they said the power school status had some kind of issue where I didn't get a single email regarding my children at all last year. I got stuff on my nieces and nephews because I was a contact, but for my individual children, getting communication from their school did not happen. All last year, I didn't get a single anything directly from Murrah High School. The band director communicated with me, the different teachers communicated with me, but an email from the school didn't happen, or a call from the school didn't happen. And basically just holding the students accountable for their individual actions and not everyone as a whole. And making sure that we're able to get somebody, that somebody's able to get us, because that's my main concern and problem with the whole issue that's surrounding these things.
I've been a JPS employee and I'm 100% behind the electronic device policy. But for me, this past year, I was one of the teachers that didn't have a full set of Chromebooks. All of my students did not have Chromebooks. So I had to default to the cell phones partially to teach. So my question is, what does the district have in place to make sure every scholar has a one-to-one device or a Chromebook, just so we won't have to default for some teachers? Because I teach Algebra 1. We need Desmos. If every scholar doesn't have Desmos, how can I move forward for the state test? So what I proposed was Desmos Test Mode. It's a app that locks down your phone, but the students have to be on their phone. So I know this policy kind of butts heads with that, but what does the district have in place for one-to-one, just to make sure we won't have to go backwards?
First of all, let me start by saying, I taught school. I am retired now. And I would like to think that, in fact, two of my other friends and I talk about it all the time. And we would like to think that we would like to teach school. Now, however, we can't do it because we can't do it with the devices. We can't do it with the devices. The cell phones, the iPad, all those things, I can't do it. And we also talk about what it was like when we went to school. We didn't have this, we didn't have that, we didn't have the other, but we seem to learn more. When I look at what's going on now, the attention span of the students is not there. And it's hard to get their attention, but you can get it a whole lot easier when you don't have an iPad or a cell phone or any of those other things. So, you know, what took them so long? I'm just trying to figure out what took so long to get this new policy. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I have a scholar. She goes to Span. We didn't have problems with cell phones, so I can't relate. This policy has always been active at our school, so I can't relate to what you all, but I do understand. But I do want to say this as a human resource professional, something that comes across my desk every day is cell phone policy, that the adults can't stop with their phone. And if we trust our teachers to prepare our scholars for the future, our high school students that are going to get jobs after they leave high school, then they have to start the disciplinary somewhere. So that's just my opinion. I do understand, though, where everyone is coming from.
Good evening, everyone. I am Lakeisha Marshall Thomas, and I serve as the Assistant Superintendent for high schools. And so I just wanted to come and just talk briefly from the high school side. And I know one of the comments was about the older students having some flexibility. And what we have seen is it's the older students that we're having the biggest issues with. And I think as Attorney Harris stated earlier, this policy is really not new. Maybe some of the outcomes or consequences have changed, but we've always had a policy where we've expected our students to keep their devices out of sight. And so what we've done is just quantified what does out of sight means. It just means in their book bag. So we're not saying that they cannot have them. We know that they have after-school activities, and they need to communicate with, their moms, and, please pick me up, or I'm staying. So we're not saying they can use them after school. They cannot use them on the bus rides to school. We have had some major issues with cell phones, and issues that have even resulted in criminal outcomes for our scholars. But most importantly, our students, some of them have experienced a lot of learning loss because they are not engaged in learning during the class times. And so when we get to the end of the school year and our scholars are failing, oftentimes those students have not been engaged throughout the entire school year. And then additionally, their classrooms where the teachers are constantly having to deal with cell phone issues, and the other students are missing out on learning because they're disciplining other students. So imagine if we're in a 94-minute block and your teacher has spent 30 minutes, 35 minutes dealing with a cell phone issue. How is that fair to the scholars who are really trying to learn that day? And so what we wanted to do was just really come up with, we're not saying that they can't have phones. We understand the importance, but we don't want them to have use of it during the instructional day.
So I do have a scholar that's in Murray High School, which she's going to the 10th grade. But I was reading over the policy, and I have a question about the confiscation of the actual cell phone. So why parents are not allowed to pick up the cell phone once it's confiscated the first time? And another thing, the offenses that's here. I can see the 5 or the 10 days, but 45 days, that's kind of extreme, don't you think? without giving them some type of detention or anything. So what will be the outcome of that if you can't give them the 45 days?
I'm Sierra, and I work at People's Middle School. I'm a teacher assistant. I think I'm like still processing this one. I think I'm like 75% there. I do like this policy. I teach SPED more specifically, and so with my classroom, it's not really phone central, especially with autistic students. Maybe with ADHD more, it might come out, but again, like with me and my certified teacher, we kind of like prevent that. We do have it in the backpacks, but consistency is the main thing that I think hurts in my classroom is the consistency part with delivering the disciplinary action when the student asks the question of like, why, well, you get to have it, so it's not fair. And I'm like, well, yeah, well, I need it for a reason. Well, I know you need it for, and so it just, especially when like I look young as is, so it's just, they have a hard time trying to take me seriously. So I'm just, I want to be 100% with this and like make sure my voice is like very strong and certain.
I totally agree with the cell phone policy. I heard a lot of information about not being able to get in touch with the school. As me being an employee, we have called parents and have had the wrong number. We as parents need to make sure our numbers are up to date, all our information. And also with the parents blocking the numbers. Yeah, they will block the school. We have had that too. So please, 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 make sure you're not blocking the school to receive your information. And also make sure your phone numbers are up to date. Because we have really had a big problem with that, not being updated. So when we call and can't get the parents, even with the troubled children and the good children, we call and try to get the parents, and the numbers has been changed or disconnected or blocked.
Now, what I'm saying is that progress is good. We made a lot of progress, but all of the things that we've made progress with are not good. And that constantly on that cell phone, that is not good. It is not good. And you know, when I put it all together, we depend so much. Well, I don't. Well, others do. I was looking around in the room here to see who had those cell phones out just now. But I don't. But the thing is, we've got all of these devices. You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that we are taking away our reason to exist. You better think about it. We're taking away our reason to exist. The jobs are not there. I mean, so many things are no longer because of this new technology. No, I'm not back in the old days. I'm back in these, I'm living now. But I notice things and I see things.
Hello, my name is Alicia Arrington Thomas, and I have 3 children in JPS. I taught in East Baton Rouge Parish School System. Recent TA and teacher at Ole Miss. This, the 45-day, 5-day, and 10-day, I don't knock it. But my thing is, inconvenience the parent. Because when you start inconveniencing the parent, they start to get with the child. If you take the phone for 45 days, every time they step in that school, get the phone. And at the end of the day, have the parent come pick up the phone. Inconvenience the parent, because we're not, they say it starts at home, right? Get the parent to talk to their children. My children know. From the time we got here, we moved here. From the time we got here, if you cut up, I'm coming up there. My children have no disciplinary problems. When they were at Northwest, Mr. Colvin, no, he seen me, hey, Miss Thomas, Your son, he right down the hall. And my son did not have a behavior problem, but he had the thing with not turning in his homework. But when I showed up, what we got going on? What we doing? Inconvenience the parent. Now, I did that because I wanted to do. I would drive from Ole Miss, where I was going to school and working. And then I work here as well, full time. I would go up there, show my face, pop in the classroom. Now, I didn't clown and act the fool with my son, but I need to know what's going on. What are we not doing? If you inconvenience, and it wasn't an inconvenience for me, it's something that I want to do, but I find that you have to inconvenience the parents because sometimes that's how you get them involved. So if you're going to take the phone for 45 days, let the parent come pick it up. If you want your child to really have their phone, and if you want your child to do right by the system, talk to your child. Work with your child, communicate with your child, communicate with the teacher, because at the same time, I tell my son, you're not going to act no fool. But I also let the teacher know, if there's a problem, let me know, because I'm not going to let you act the fool with my child, but my child not going to come up here and act no fool either. We do full circle. I do full circle. And my thing is, I don't care how anybody feel. I do full circle. I'm not going to let you act the fool with my child just because you didn't have nothing else to do today, or because one time my son was playing with a pen in his finger. The teacher calls me up. She's like, well, he has a behavior problem. Sure, what's the behavior problem? Because I'm here. Let's get it now. Oh, he was fiddling with a pen in his hand. I said, really? She said, yeah. I said, who gave him the pen? She said, well, I did. Ma'am, stop paying that much attention to my son. It's other things you could be doing. We have to start inconveniencing people. Make people pay attention where attention needs to be put. If we're going to put attention to the children, put attention to the children. But you're going to have to get everybody involved, full circle. And I'm not saying everybody can take off work, but if you want to get them, they don't want to come off work either. Inconvenience the parents. You let them take that phone at the end of the day, but let the parent come and get that phone. And every time they show up, they know the routine, drop it off. We'll be waiting for your mama to come, your daddy, whomever, to come get it at the end of the day.
I am a parent, a concerned parent. I have 3 scholars in the district, 2 of which are in high school. The one thing that I just want to make sure that we'll have in place is consistent implementation from classroom to classroom and campus to campus. Because the minute one teacher enforces it and another one doesn't, you'll start to have issues within that building, and then from school to school the same. So I just want to make sure that the district has, an understanding of that and processes and procedures in place to make sure it's consistent from campus to campus.
I am an employee and I am a parent, and I see it from both spectacles. As a teacher, I remember being at a high school and the students knew the pocket chart. We're talking about 11th and 12th graders at Lanier Junior Senior High School, at the heart of Jackson, may I add. The expectation was in place, and they knew when you come through the door, the phone goes in the pocket chart. It's no communication. And they knew that when they came in there, we were ready to take care of business. So we weren't going back and forth. But the issue is sometimes our parents don't trust us to do a job that we were hired to do. I know when I get up and come to work, I don't come and say who I'm gonna pick on today. I just want everybody to do what they came to do, and that's take care of business. So I get it. So I'm just asking, as an educator, will you trust us? Maybe you've had some bad experiences, I get it, but we're not all bad. And everybody needs grace extended to them. Even you don't have a good day, if we're honest about it. And so I'm gonna say that with that, so I think it's a great idea because it's so much that our children need to learn. And one of the parents was talking about if a child, you take their phone, they don't want to come to school. Well, I recently was hired as a graduation coach. We're coming to their house. You don't want to come to school because of a phone? We're coming to the house. And then you still don't want to come to school. The truancy officer is coming for your parent. So you don't want to get into that. So we're doing our job. We're trying to elevate JPS Joy. So the other thing I want to talk about, you know you got to say that. As a parent, though, I just want to ask, what happens if someone with health issues allows someone else to use the device? How can we identify those who do have documentation? What if we have scholars who have children or sick parents and they need, can we add that in? Where are we going to secure those devices? Because these children have iPhone 21s. And I just want to know how we're going to secure it. Thank you so much.
The question is from one of my coworkers. She just would like to know, access on the buses. With them not having their phones or being able to have their devices out on the buses, if an emergency happens, what is the protocols in place for that bus driver, or will there be individual that's able to call, and how would parents be notified?
My name is Nolan Bailey. I'm an upcoming sophomore, and I go to Tougaloo Early College. And so, like, for our classes and stuff, like, it require our phone. Like, we got an authenticator app, and like to log into our college class, we got to use our phone. And like JPS, they got like certain restrictions, like with the JPS thing. So sometimes we have to do certain stuff on our phone that like we need for school though, and they don't let you do it on your computer because it's restricted, and we have to use our phone. So.
My name is Andre, and I'm an upcoming sophomore at Murrah. And one thing I had a comment about is the unnecessary places in which phones are banned. I can understand banning them in the classroom or banning them like in the hallways during transitions and things of that nature. But in the buses, like in the lunchroom, it doesn't seem necessary to ban phones there. What is the advantage that you're getting there? I feel that in lunchrooms, in the past, I've been like finding myself without any friends, anyone to talk to in the lunchroom. And you know, I pull out my phone to at least pass the time or something and not sit there and just do nothing, right? In the buses, right? In the buses, a lot of people just like to sit there and listen to music or sit there and play a game on their phone, and I don't see what the harm in that is. I think something more effective to do would be banning like things like speakers or things on buses, because I know a lot of children like to, you know, blast music all throughout the ride. So I just wanted to talk about that.
I'm an educator with Jackson Public Schools, and I see both spectrum. I'm also a parent with Jackson Public School, 3 students, and my last one is graduating this year. And the problem that I've had, and I don't have a problem with the policy, because in my classroom, drop those phones immediately. My phone goes in the bucket with theirs, and they are most definitely consistent, and they do it. If you stay consistent, they will stay consistent. But my problem is, my son, we drop him off at school every morning, and out of the 5 days in the week, we get a call saying that he's not at school. So him having his cell phone and with us having the GPS on his phone give us the knowledge to say, hey, I know he's there. So, you know, my husband and I, we will call the school and they will answer, because I've called several times. And, you know, they know exactly where he is. And I'm like, well, why did I get a message saying that he was absent? I just want to know. I don't mind taking off work. I don't mind my husband don't mind. I just want to know. So with the phones being powered off, we don't have access to their GPS, which means then we don't have access to our child. So that's probably the only thing that I have a problem with when it comes to the policy. And again, like I say, you know, when they walk in my classroom, that is a rule that I make from the beginning. And I heard one of my fellow persons say they have the little drop box or what have you. Well, I have their own personal locket because we get funds so that we can purchase things to make safety in the classroom. So I use my funds to do those particular things so that my kids' phones are safe. And then you not only have respect of the kids, they respect you more.
You guys said that the buses too. So like she said, the GPS, I literally stalk my child because she my baby. But she has to stand on the corner to catch a bus. And so I watch her, I work from home. I sit there and I'm looking at her all the way to Jim Hill at every stop. But that's in the morning. So in the afternoon, it's different. For whatever reason, her dad has to pick her up because the bus don't come, or it might come at 5:30 and she been standing out there and they fight and they doing all kinds of stuff because administrators want to go home. I mean, teachers, everybody want to go home at the time. But my question or my concern is if they can't have it on the bus, who gonna enforce that? And I'm just being real. Like, the bus driver got to drive. Who gonna be checking, you know, and I don't see, like he was saying, at certain times, and teachers, Miss Lindsay, they keep coming up here, that was my teacher. So, you know what I'm saying? Teachers are, yeah, they people, you know what I'm saying? So I understand. And like she said, with that boxes, I think that might be more of a backbone type thing. Like, you know, I had teachers that didn't play. So you put in a box, we didn't have phones, but I'm just saying, it's certain teachers that, you know, if you got a certain demeanor, guidelines, or whatever, they gonna follow. Like she said, if you do it, they gonna do it. If you know, and if you set example, and if you got free time in the classroom, it's just like when we were little, we used to color or read or whatever. So some teachers used to play music, you know, so what do they do now in their little free time, if they get free time?
Many of you have shared some serious questions, some great questions, some feedback, some concerns, or some praise for the policy. We're really trying hard to be smart about this. We're trying hard to make a good decision. I promise you that when you go to the doctor, that doctor isn't simply listening to what you have to say. He's also looking at some data and doing some x-rays or checking your blood and whatnot. So I don't know where we'll land with this, but we're committed to doing our very best to hear, respond to all of the needs that are being named, and to ensure that, you know, all of this energy and all these people and the time and all the political might that's wound up in public education, that we get the outcomes that we're working towards. In my closing comment, I want to say this. You know, we would love to simply say to our scholars, you know, we want to be respectful at all times. We want to use our phones at times where we're not in the learning space, and have that be it, and go on with our lives teaching and learning. We would love to do that. Reality says that doesn't really work. We would love to also say, hey, you know, we've got a rule, no phones, you know, don't take it out, and have that work. Reality oftentimes is different from that. We would love to, in the case where someone brings a phone, takes the phone out, to be able to say, hey, you took your phone out, please put that away, and have that be it. Our reality is not that, y'all. So we've kind of shortcut a lot of the experience and incidents that have led us to a policy here, and we haven't really talked about that. It would be lovely if I could just say to you, put your phone away and keep it moving, and the phone goes away and we don't have any issues. It'd be great for you to be able to sit on your bus or in your cafeteria and do whatever you do that is not bullying somebody else, that's not sharing inappropriate content, that's not scheduling some meetup to do something that you shouldn't be doing. We would love for that to be the case. That's not been our experience. And to be clear, it's not the majority of our scholars. But I can't look at a class and know who's gonna be bullying today, who's gonna be scheduling a meetup to cut up today. I can't look at a group of scholars and say, oh yeah, you're the one, so let me take your phone. The rest of y'all can keep them. I can't do that. And it's unfortunate. There's been a lot said today that we're gonna have to sit with. The communications, ready, steady communications, responses to families, all of that sort of thing, absolutely. The continuous, the consistent implementation of whatever policy, including the current, the one that's already in place, consistent implementation of our policy, absolutely. All of that's real. But what happens is, if we don't create a policy that puts and clarify in our policy the teeth that's behind those expectations, people start to live those expectations the way they want to. And you get this variation and people do their thing. And we don't have the human resources, nor the time, nor the inclination to be tussling with anybody about a phone back and forth, and creating more and more consequences. I I'm going to out myself. I'm going to tell them. I suggested, how about we remove the scholar from the school? Now, cooler heads prevail, and that's not what we're talking about today. But that's how serious I am. I don't want to fight about this. I really don't want to fight about this. I want scholars to have a great time. I want them to be safe, but I don't want to fight any young person about a phone. And I don't want my team to have to fight any young person or their mama or daddy or grandmama about a phone. And so we talk through the variations of consequences and what's appropriate and is this too hard, is this too much, we talk through that. We're trying to make it as simple as possible, but also be as clear as possible. The folks assure me that 5 days will rock a young person's world. 5 days without 24 hours, or is it an hour? The folks assure me that that will rock young people's worlds. My hope is that we don't get to the 5 days. And if we do, that would be enough to be the jolt in the system that we don't talk about 10 or 45. Just want to try to give you some of the thinking behind what we're putting before you. If we create a situation where we're having to go back and forth, it's unwinnable for any of us. So just know that we're listening. We're gonna have to huddle and talk through all that you all have shared with us, and we will commit to getting the frequently asked questions document updated with the questions that were asked that have not already been shared, updated and push that information out as quickly as possible, and we'll go from there. Thank you all again for coming tonight. Just really appreciate this community for the way you all show up for us.